All right, let's dive right into one of the biggest questions we can possibly ask, inspired by the book Life Worth Living. It's a question that kind of hums in the background of our everyday lives, our goals, our ambitions, and it's this: what actually makes a life worth living? So to kick things off, let's start with a really interesting question from the book's authors. Think about it for a second. Do you want to be well known, famous, influential, a name that people recognize? Or would you rather be known well, deeply understood by just a few people who really, truly matter? Just pausing on that choice for a moment. Well, it can tell you a lot about what you're really chasing. And this gets right to the heart of the whole thing. Most of us spend so much of our time asking, what do I want? But the authors suggest this tiny but really profound shift. Instead, ask, what is worth wanting? Just adding that one word, worth, it completely changes the game. It moves us from just our immediate desires to the much deeper question of what has real, lasting value.
Now, a quick heads up, this kind of questioning isn't always comfortable. In fact, the authors argue that when you really engage with it, it has the power to wreck your life. But, in the best possible way.
That's a pretty bold claim, right? This book might wreck your life. But what they mean is that once you truly face the question of what matters most, your old assumptions, maybe even the path you're on, just might not make sense anymore. It's about reorienting you towards something way more authentic. So what exactly is the question they're talking about? Well, it's that deep, fundamental query. What is a good life? What is worthy of my time and my humanity? It's kind of hard to pin down in one neat sentence, but you know it when it hits you. It's that moment when the autopilot of your life just suddenly switches off. And listen, this is not some new 21st century problem. People have been grappling with this forever. Think about Gautama Buddha, a prince living in comfort who saw suffering and just left his palace. Or Simon Peter, a fisherman who dropped his nets to follow a completely new calling. Or Ida B. Wells, who, after her friends were tragically murdered, dedicated her entire life to fighting injustice. They all had a moment where everything had to change. And this quote just sums up that experience perfectly. What had been normal and assumed became questionable. The question makes the familiar feel strange. It forces you to reevaluate everything, to the point where the life you were living no longer feels like the life you were meant to live. So if the question is so powerful, what's our default answer today? What's the vision of a good life that our culture just kind of hands to us? The book gives this default answer a fantastic name, the Walgreens vision. You know exactly what this is. It's the stuff you find in the aisles of a pharmacy. It's this idea that a good life is basically a neat little package of longevity, health, and happiness. I mean, sounds pretty good, right? Yeah, it's this tidy little bundle of goals. Live a long life, stay healthy, and feel happy. The assumption is that these three things all go together, and that getting them is the ultimate prize. Our culture is constantly telling us this is what's worth wanting. But let's just pause for a second and really think about that. When you consider the people you truly admire, the lives that have actually inspired you, did they always check those three boxes? Just think about the sheer power of this counterexample. Martin Luther King Jr. spoke these words when he was just 39 years old, knowing full well his life was in constant danger. He wasn't prioritizing a long life. He was living for a purpose that he valued more, so much more than his own safety, his own health, or even his personal happiness. Okay, so if that default Walgreens vision is just too simple, how in the world do we tackle a question as huge and intimidating as, what makes a life worth living? The authors tell this great little story about a child trying to read the word preposterous. It's too big, right? It's a long, jumbled string of letters that feels totally impossible to sound out all at once. And you know what? The question can feel exactly like that. Overwhelming, unapproachable, just preposterous. So what's the solution? Well, it's simple. You don't tackle it all at once. You break it down. Pos, teres. You take it in these manageable little chunks. And the book argues we can do the exact same thing with the big question about our lives. So what are these smaller chunks? Well, the book gives us a kind of map of smaller questions to guide the way. Questions like, who do we answer to? How is a good life supposed to feel? What should we hope for? And, a really big one, what do we do about suffering? By digging into these, we can start to build a bigger, more complete picture for ourselves. So where does all this leave us? Well, the goal isn't to walk away with one single perfect answer. The real goal is to begin the process, to actually start the conversation with yourself and with other people. And this is so important. The authors really stress that this is not a solo mission. This whole journey is meant to be shared. These big questions about meaning and purpose, they truly come alive when we talk about them, when we challenge each other, and when we help expand each other's imaginations. I absolutely love this quote because it's so clear and simple. The good life is not a buffet. You can't just go through and pick and choose the most appealing parts from different philosophies, a little bit of this, a little of that. A truly meaningful life, it needs to be coherent. And that's really the final task. It's seeing how your answers to all those smaller questions start to fit together. Do they create a consistent vision of life that doesn't contradict itself? Or are they just a bunch of scattered pieces? A meaningful life needs a vision that can actually guide your choices day in and day out. So all of this really brings us back to you. After everything we've talked about, what's your first step? You don't need the final answer right now, but you do need a place to begin exploring what really truly matters to you. And to leave you with a really concrete place to start, think about this question. It's designed to directly challenge that default Walgreens vision. What purpose, what person, what ideal is so important to you that you would be willing to trade some comfort for it? Your answer to that question, well, that might just be the first piece of your very own life worth living.